You went. You not only did you go to Israel, you went to Gaza. You went into the prisons and spent time with some of the people. I mean, how did that experience change you personally?
Well, I try to get into this a bit at the end of the book, but it's really this. There was a strange thing that happened in the main year of the war that I write about, which was the number of people back home in America and England who said to me that I had changed. The main observation I had, the people said I'd lost some of my natural pessimism.
You're more optimistic from going there.
And I'll tell you why. It's because there's a question that I suspect many of you have thought about all my life, which is, I grew up with grandparents who'd been in the war, and I grew up with those generations, the people left over from the greatest generation, and like every family in my country of birth, we all had, people we'd lost in the family, and stories of those days, and of what civilians had gone through in the Blitz in London, and much more. And there's always been this question in my life, which was, I suspect the question many of you have had, which is, if we faced something like our forebears faced, would we be up to the challenge? And it's a very deep question to ponder on. It's a good one to hold yourself to. And there have been polls in recent years which have worried me enormously. There was one after the invasion of Ukraine that found that it asked American voters, American public, if America was invaded, would you fight for the country or flee? And it was only just a majority of people who said that they would stay and fight. Without making a partisan point, I'm simply repeating the findings of the poll. It was a minority of Democrats who said they would stay and fight, and a majority, but only just, of Republicans.
I think you know the crowd here.
Assuming the rest presumably would flee to Canada. But I found that very worrying. At the same time, one has to remember, polls are polls. Nobody knows, as I mentioned earlier, nobody knows really how you'd behave until something happened. But it was very telling. In the UK earlier this year, there was a poll of young people between the ages of 18 to 40, which was the age of the generation that went off in 1914 and again in 1939. And this time found that something like 20-something% of young Brits of that age group said that they would be willing to fight for their country, even under existential threat. The reason I mention this is because in Israel that isn't the case. In Israel, everyone in Israel, the older generation, all said, I wonder if the younger ones are up for it. They seem to be on TikTok and Instagram, and they want to party in Tel Aviv and so on. But on October the 7th, a moment of enormous trial came, and the young men and women of Israel stood up, and wow, did they stand up. And just to finish it, just to finish this point, the reason I mention this is because this should give hope to everybody. It can be the case that if you educate people well, if you bring them up with a real and deep love of their country, of their faith, of their family, their tradition, if you bring them up with all of that, then if they do get tested as our forebears were, then they could step up too.
Yeah.
But this to me is the answer to it. And I'll just finish by saying that to me has been, and I say this at the end of the book, that has been the biggest realization I've had, is that the death cults say, we love death even more than you love life. And the answer to that is, we do not apologize for cherishing life. We will not apologize for loving life. In fact, it's why we'll win.
Yeah.